This episode is sponsored by the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. Upcoming entertainment includes Atmosphere on February 15th and I Mom So Hard on March 22nd. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Five-time Grammy winner Esperanza Spalding performs this Sunday at the historic Warner Theater in Washington, D.C. She called in to discuss her acclaimed jazz career, from winning Best New Artist in 2011 to being nominated for Best Jazz Vocal Album at next week's Grammy Awards. Hey, Esperanza Spalding. Hey, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Thank you for having me. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude.
Exactly. We're talking to you because the five-time Grammy winning Esperanza Spalding, I should say, is coming to the Warner Theater here in Washington, D.C. on Sunday, January 26th. Now, I know this will be right after, a couple days after the inauguration and the Peace Ball. And I know you're not performing at the Peace Ball this time, but I saw you perform the last time in 2017 at the brand new, the Black History Museum there, the new Smithsonian. It had just opened. So memories of that special day. And if you want to try to relate it to, being in DC after this inauguration, it's going to be a crazy time.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that Peace Ball, I just remember it being so packed, just like, so like, just like, I don't remember the direction that I felt the audience like pulsating, like this surge. It kind of felt like it was toward the stage. It was kind of like towards each other. I mean, I think, the practice of being an engaged citizen applies no matter what's happening, whoever your elected official is or isn't. And I feel like maybe there's like a residue, like we get to engage with this particular kind of residue that we taste and feel and come up, which is the reminder of like, oh yeah, this process requires a lot of engagement and a lot of togetherness and a lot of communicating and communing and being in space and rubbing shoulders and it feeling messy and sweaty and stinky and it's like all the things. And I kind of felt like in 2017 that Peace Ball was just this like very visceral reminder of like, oh yeah, we got to get close and be in this together.
I think you were tapping on the side of the instrument a little, you remember?
Yeah, I remember. It was a song that I wrote for the UNESCO, the 50th anniversary of the UNESCO, or the 40th anniversary, I don't remember, 40th or 50th anniversary of the UNESCO World Heritage Site program. So it was a song that was about building monuments that live in our hearts, that we hand off across the generations with our songs and our hands and our rhythms. That's what that song was about.
Awesome. So this time we invite our listeners check out. I just interviewed Andy Shalal, who runs the Peace Ball, Busboys and Poets, and Alice Walker, the author of the freaking Color Purple, that literally are going to be the episode right before you, actually. If you want to check it out, listeners.
I will. I will check it out too. Shoot.
Yeah, check it out. But you will be performing at Warner Theater. The feeling that'll still be the residue that it's going to be in town this time at Warner Theater. Are you going to comment on it at all from the stage, or you speak mostly through your music, or I don't know? Yeah, relate it to this time around.
Well, when I'm on the stage, I'm doing my absolute best to be fully present with the room, and what feels true and alive and needed in the room from me, from us, in that particular weird, slightly tyrannical role of having a microphone and having a lot of power to set the tone and move ideas and feelings and sounds through a room full of 1,000 people. So I can't say from this point in time what is going to be needed in that moment, but I do very much feel like my job as an artist is to be daring enough to tend to what's really there, and to use the music as like a companion that helps us stay present and explore the complexity, the pain, the conflict, the complicity, the grief, the celebration, like whatever feels present. Like our job is to bring in the sounds that allow us to really move through that in a generative way. And that's my job. That is my job on that day. And and I'll be present with what's there to know what I need to contribute.
Very well said, and super cool that we're gonna get to hear you in the nation's capital of all weeks. It's a really cool timing for your tour. Well, we just mentioned, that this show at Warner Theater is gonna be just after the Peace Ball, but it's gonna be just before the Grammys on February 2nd. I believe with the wildfires and it, God, it's so tragic, but I believe it. I read that it's still happening at the Crypto.com arena there in Los Angeles. Because you're gonna be nominated, like you are currently nominated for Best Jazz Vocal Album for Milton and Esperanza, that collab you did with the
Thank
Brazilian
you.
artist Milton Nascimento. A, how honored are you to be nominated, and B, are you even going because of the fires?
I'm listening for what musicians in the area affected by the fire really want folks to do.
Yeah,
I don't want to go just because it's there. Like
sure.
if it feels like that, if artists are saying like that's not what we want you to use your energy and your dollars and the money you're going to spend, like, I don't know, renting a limo or whatever to support us, I'm going to do that. It's a little tricky because I'm, you know, I'm working on behalf of an elder here with this project, and really I'm most excited about the Grammy because this elder that I love so dearly is being acknowledged at this time in his career. So it's kind of like I want to go stand by him, and support
Yeah.
him in his process, and also honor what musicians are asking for.
Right. Yeah, you want to be respectful for the giant calamity that's affecting so many lives,
That
but at
part.
the same time, you don't want Milton to get overshadowed because I know you've enjoyed and done his songs over the years, and so this is his big moment.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, I know we both will want to do what is being asked for, I mean, and saying something like the musician community is such a futile, it's like a silly sentence because there's so many musician communities and
Right.
different people are going to be wanting different things. So basically just to say we're listening, and we want our presence there to be supportive and to be a benefit to the people most affected. We don't
Yeah.
want to just come, soak in the splendor of it all while people don't have a roof over their head.
Right, exactly. Well, but I should ask, are you okay? Are you even based there, or where are you actually at right now?
I'm based in Portland, Oregon.
Okay,
But
where you grew up.
I know a lot of people who, I know musician friends who lost their homes, and yeah, it's just really, it's very unbelievable and unfortunately not surprising, and just, yeah, heart is with all the ones, just trying to keep track of different people's GoFundMe's and, the albums that they're selling to raise funds for different organizations who are helping musicians and helping families, and we're just trying to stay present with it.
Yeah, it really is so tragic and heartbreaking. So all the best wishes and everything out to everyone affected. And I know you got an honorary degree from CalArts, so you know the
Yeah.
area well. So all the best to everyone affected. Well, it's hard to segue out of anything so heartbreaking, but since you mentioned you were born in Portland, Oregon, I would love to remind our listeners some of your origin story because that's what inspires so many other young musicians. So you're born in Portland on I got a kick out of this. October 18th, 1984. That's 2 days after I was born. Like,
Okay, come on, 84. They
let's
made us
go.
good that year.
Libras.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but my real question is, what did you grow up listening to, or what was the spark for you? I read somewhere that it was you watching Mr. Rogers and seeing Yo Yo Ma playing on there, but I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, I'll ask you, what was it?
It was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And I mean, wow, there's so much in that story, just in that there was a program on public television called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and that this person and the team that he worked with, they were all very informed early childhood development specialists
Yeah,
and had dedicated their lives to figuring out how to make this programming that would feel soothing and comforting, soothing and educational for young peoples. And I was one of those young peoples, and I mean, I watched that show all the time, and remember being so affected by the sound of the Bach cello suites as played by Yo-Yo Ma, and ran to my mother begging to do this thing. I didn't even have the language for it, but she figured it out, and I got to participate in some of the community music programs, which there were many of when I was a child here in Portland, Oregon. And again, that is a testament to the labor of these grown-up professional musicians who took it upon themselves to create and lead and teach Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. One of them is calling me right now. That is
You can
hilarious.
take the call. I'll wait if you want to
That
take.
is so funny. Let me just take it and I'll be right back.
Oh,
Wow, that's too much. Wow. Or that was too magical and crazy of a, like a synchronicity.
their ear was buzzing.
That is totally bizarre.
You want
Like
to give him a name check him if you want.
I
Give him a
know.
shout
I
out.
want to give a shout out. So that the person calling me just now was Greg McKelvey, who was one of three musicians. Ronnie Harris, Thera Memory, and Greg McKelvey were these three jazz musicians who have been doing a lot of teaching in middle schools and high schools that had music programs, and they realized that all of the inner city schools where most of the black and brown kids were didn't have these music programs, and so they took it upon themselves to convince Portland Parks and Recreation to give them space and funding to create something called the Cultural Recreation Band, which was a music program that taught concert band and jazz music and theory to all these inner city kids. And I was one of those kiddos. And here he
Awesome.
is calling me while I'm talking about the splendor and the generosity of these grown-ups who made these community music programs possible.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Now the other two people are gonna call because you said their name.
Well,
um.
one of them is passed on, but I wouldn't
Oh,
put it
sorry.
past the other one to call.
Well, they're listening from beyond and proud of you.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So that's separate from that's an amazing program, by the way, for the inner city kids to learn music. But you also were you said you I think even at like age 5 you were playing violin in the Chamber Music Society, right, of Oregon. So
Yes, another program created by Hazel Lorenzo and Dorothy McCormick, both of whom I believe have passed on. I know Hazel Lorenzo has. And again, these two women who, and I mean, check this out. So I'm like 6 years old. This is my first foray into what it is to be a classical musician or a musician. And this chamber orchestra is conducted by this woman named Hazel Di
yeah,
Lorenzo, who is a was a European ancestor person, but she had a curly fro, like a little short curly fro. And like, so for me, it was totally normal to see a female conductor. That was like my first image, you know? And
right.
then I
And that's
realized
why that's
later,
important. That's why
I
that is
mean,
important.
exactly. And I mean, all of the educators in that program that I worked with anyway were these elder women who just this was their life passion to make sure that young kiddos had a solid music education. I mean, my God, like thinking about it now as a grown up with a life and, you know, all these people that I'm responsible for, thinking about what they were able to do, you know, what they made time for, I mean, my heart explodes. You know, it's just, it's like a miracle. It's a miracle. And the generosity and the love that they poured into these programs all year, every year is just like unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Absolutely. And you continued to do him proud because you got scholarships to Portland State University, Berklee College of Music in Boston, all that stuff. And then there was a first couple albums, the Spanish label you did Junjo, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes,
Junjo.
yes.
And then the US label for Esperanza in 2008. But let's get into your third album because that ties into what you're talking about. It was literally called Chamber Music Society, named after
Yeah.
that. That really blew up on the Billboard chart and won you your first Grammy for Best New Artist in 2011. I mean, memories of that Grammy night. I mean, you beat Justin Bieber and Drake and Florence and the Machine and Mumford and Sons. I mean, that's an insane lineup of folks you knocked off there to win that. But yeah, how thrilling was that night and that ceremony to finally feel like, hey, I made it?
Well, gosh, I didn't feel like, hey, I made it. And I mean, I don't, I don't have, let's see, I don't relate to I don't relate to the award. It's like, oh yeah, I beat you.
Yeah.
That feels crazy. Like what it is to be a musician. And like, I wasn't pursuing a career as like a popular artist, which
Right.
sounds
Yeah.
weird. I was, you know, one of the jazz geeks on the fringe over here who's like trying to like figure out how to put my ideas together, you know. So even getting nominated in that category felt like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
what? How'd I end up on on that voting roster in the first place?
Samara
I
Joy
think,
said something similar. We had her on a couple weeks ago because it's
yeah,
coming from
it's
this jazz side. You're not expecting to go mainstream,
that's
but when you
right.
win Best New Artist, suddenly everybody knows you. And the Bieber and Drake fans are like, let's check out Esperanza Spalding. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if they were going to check me out, but and yeah, it was a very special moment, and it it brought more people to my concerts. It allowed me to hire more musicians, having more gigs, having larger theaters. Right after that win, I went out with like a 14-piece ensemble,
Nice.
like using the opportunity of more, spotlight and more butts and seats to make it possible to bring out more instrumentalists that I deeply revered, and had been important figures in my development as a musician. And then, of course, with the follow-up record, Radio Music Society, I'm like, oh, okay, so if more people are going to hear this now because of the last Grammy, I want to put everybody on here. Like, there's so many people on that record, including one of the teachers I mentioned who was one of the founders of the Cultural Recreation Band. At that time, when I was making Radio Music Society, he was running like the offshoot of that, or the evolution of that, called the American Music Program. And so, I invited him and his students to come record 2 songs on Radio Music Society, and also featured one of my teachers, Janice Scroggins, rest in power, who was one of the educators in those programs when I was a child. So I saw it as like, oh, okay, if there's spotlight, if there's platform, like, I know what to do with this. I know how to use this. And
And
then
you won for that one. You won Best Jazz Vocal Album for Radio Music Society.
yeah,
So.
yeah.
And for the song City of Roses. Yeah.
Oh, that's true, huh? That's
Yeah.
which that song is one of the songs that Sarah Memory had arranged for his students. And we they are on the record playing that. So that's like a beautiful through line, the past through the current and into the future, hopefully.
I love that through line. And there you go, folks. Check out City of Roses and of course Black Gold. There's so many good songs on Radio Music Society. But
Thank you.
moving right along. All right, so then after you do Emily's D plus Evolution and Exposure, great collabs with Robert Glasper, Layla Hathaway. Like you're saying, everybody wants to be on your stuff at this point. But moving right along, you win again Best Jazz Vocal Album for 12 Little Spells. I guess that was the ceremony was right before COVID happened, I think. But yeah, just memories of where your headspace was putting 12 Little Spells together. What was the creative inspiration for that?
Well, in the years prior to making that record, I have been learning about so much research and so much practice in this world around the therapeutic potency of music and really of performance. And I figured down the road I would really study it, in collaboration. I'd really study that that field, or like what part is most relevant for me to study in that vast field of like music as a therapeutic art form. And in the like milieu of everything I was studying and reading and exploring and learning from practitioners and books and workshops and etc., I felt so full of this album. Like I just felt like, oh my gosh, I have an out, like I have, all the song titles came in one foul swoop. The concept came in kind of like a big lightning bolt of inspiration. And so I thought, I'm going to give myself this album to make music about this theme, just based on how it's moving through me. I'm not claiming any collaboration with scientists or any research or anything like that. This is what I want to offer in this theme. And then after that, I started collaborating. Actually, at the beginning of 2020, it's funny. I started putting together, before we knew about the pandemic, started moving into the next phase of it, which was like, let's really have like a lab. Let's really have a space where folks who are interested in this, who have been doing the research about this, can get together and learn how what we're each carrying from our respective disciplines can enhance what the other's carrying, and we can make music that is designed or crafted to really offer support in these really specific ways. And so that's what 12 Little Spells was in relationship to Songwriters Apothecary Lab.
Yeah, like you're saying. So that lab idea became Songwriters Apothecary Lab, which wins that Grammy again for Best Jazz Vocal Album. I love, thanks for weaving these together with the through lines and how one project inspires another. I love seeing the connective tissue between all these. All right.
Thank you.
Well, I know we're a little short on time, so I'll just mention you were nominated again for Live at Detroit Jazz Festival with Wayne Shorter, etc. That's some cool stuff. But let's bring it full circle around to the current latest album, your latest nomination. We mentioned you and Milton are, we mentioned in terms of whether you're going to attend the ceremony and the fires and all that. But I want to talk creatively about it. It's got some cool covers like, Beatles Staying Alive, Michael Jackson's Earth Song, all that stuff. But yeah, talk creatively about working with Milton and how wonderful of an experience that was.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the way that you prepare for this conversation. I really appreciate, you reading around, snooping around, and learning about some of these backstories. I really appreciate that. I really
It
appreciate
makes
you
it a little better
taking
than
that
a
effort.
little more
I
in
appreciate
depth, I
it.
hope.
I appreciate it. So this project, I feel was 15 years in the making. I'm just gonna say that because um, ever since I first met Milton, there was this little spark of like a something. I don't know, a resonance, a harmony between who we are. It always felt really like I felt nervous around him at first because I just admire him so much. Like I love what he does so much. But he wasn't any different around me than he is around his family or his friends. So I always felt this really open like welcome. This levity. He's very serious, but he just has an ease about him, around people that he's comfortable with. And so um yeah, I would whenever I'd be in Brazil and he was also in Brazil, I'd try to go visit or go to the jam session at his house, or sometimes his nephew or his son would put together a jam session so I could come play with him and other local musicians, and it just this like rapport developed. Not to mention that in my own life and world, I'm just studying his music. I'm studying his music all the time. I'm inspired by his voice, by his writing, by his lyrics, and I'm writing, my iPhone is filled with voice memos with sketches of songs that in my imagination I was singing with Milton.
Yeah.
And then out of the blue, I want to say in 2022, his son just asks me if I'll produce the next record for his father. And he's
Wow.
like, "Yeah, you should produce it. It'll be you and him, but like produced by you." And that was bringing together so many things that I love. Like I love producing, I love putting ensembles together, I love making arrangements, I love being in the studio, I love Milton, so of course I had to say yes. And then um let the stakes on this felt so high to me because he's my hero. He's like in the pantheon of music gods for me. And so the stakes felt super high. And so I had to from day one go like, you know what? I'm gonna have to let the spirit of the album itself run this because I can't try to make it more than what like I can't try to make it something different than what it's organically taking shape to be. And so I feel what we have is this very like honest portrait of our personalities and how like what happens when our personalities encounter each other, our musical personalities encounter each other. So it's kind of kooky, and it's like reaching. It's very reaching and it's very like a lot of little poems of like just thoughts and blips and story fragments. And that is very much what it's like to be in space with Milton. Like he's so filled with stories and memories, and one little thing will then send him off on this other story, and then he makes a joke, and then it kind of feels like what it is to spend time with him.
That's awesome. And I assume we'll hear some of those songs in the set list at Warner Theater.
Of course. I mean,
Fan-
Milton won't be there, but
Yeah.
he'll be there in spirit.
It'll be some of the songs you did together, but you performing
Hmm.
them. So that's
Yes.
awesome. Hey, final seconds. You've mentioned a lot about all these different educational organizations that inspired you growing up. You even answered one of their phone calls during this. Put us on. Uh, how are you trying to give back? I know you did some professor stuff at Harvard, right, from like 2017 to 2022. But either with that or going beyond that, why is it important for you now to be one of those people that another young generation gets to look up to maybe learn what jazz is all about? I don't know if this young generation appreciates it as much as they should, but you're gonna inspire them. I know you will.
Thank you. Well, I think this generation is really deep, and like the generation after me is super cued into the social, historical, political context of the music and devotes themselves, the ones who are really interested in it, devote themselves wholeheartedly to the study and the practice. And just the wild, amazing coincidence of it all. And with you asking that question, the person who just called me, Greg McKelvey, and I are currently planning on revamping a version of the Cultural Recreation Band. It'll probably have a different name,
I
but
love
that's
it.
like our next big project. He's recently retired from his job in public schools, and now wants to turn his attention towards making that program exist again. So that's what's next, and I am involved. That's the pay it. That's the like keeping the cycle of reciprocity going.
Cycle of Reciprocity. That's an album title sometime somewhere down the line. I love it. That's going to be great. Well, everybody, check out the show at Warner Theater. It's going to be on Sunday, January 26th. And that'll be exactly a week before the Grammys, barring any, wildfire postponements. So, we're all rooting for you. But
Thank you.
come see your show first, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for everything. And I'll see you in DC.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.